H.P. Lovecraft said that the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. I graduated from a very small college in a very small town in central Texas. I'm not exactly sure why I majored in archaeology. Maybe I watched too much Indiana Jones, or maybe I just wanted some kind of adventure. After 4 years and about $30,000 in tuition fees, I finally got my archaeology degree and realized that the job market was not only non-existent, but even if you were to find a job, the pay was almost a joke. A couple of times I volunteered with the local university on one of their digs. After about 2 weeks of work in the hot sun, digging, all we found were a couple of old marbles and what seemed to be a chicken bone. After about a month of looking for other jobs, I just decided to quit and got a small part-time gig working at Target just to survive. You don't know the true dark side of humanity until you spend 2 months working in retail. One day after I got home, I realized I had a missed call. I looked and it was my friend Roger from college. He left me a message to call him back, and so I did. He told me he had a job for me, archaeology related. He said it was something for the government, but he couldn't exactly tell me what it was right then and there. But he said the pay was good. That was enough for me to quit my day job and pack my bags. A couple of days later, I was at the airport going through security. The TSA agent saw my ticket and gave me a weird look. I was then led to a weird part of the airport that very few people were in. There were maybe 3 or 4 people just standing around, very stagnant, not looking at each other and just staring down at their phone. They told me my gate was 2B. I slowly walked to the gate and handed them my ticket and went down into my plane. The first thing I noticed was that the plane was very small, maybe 20 seats total. The next odd thing was that I was the only person in that plane. Suddenly I heard the door close. The pilot didn't say anything. There were no flight attendants. The plane just started moving. Before I knew it, we were on the runway, going full speed, and going into the air. The plane ride lasted for hours. Maybe 6 or 7, it was very hard to tell. I tried to open a window before I realized all the windows on the airplane were sealed shut. After what seemed like an eternity, we finally started to descend. I could hear something hitting the top of the plane that sounded like possibly rainfall. The door opened and 2 United States soldiers walked in with their assault rifles. They called me by my last name and asked me to follow them. As I walked out of the plane, right away I noticed we weren't in the United States anymore. The surrounding was very jungle-like, and it was pouring rain. The 2 soldiers led me down the stairs and towards a jeep. One of the soldiers asked me for my cell phone. Honestly, I was starting to feel a little weird at that point. I didn't know who these guys were, where I was, or where I was going. We drove for about 10 minutes through the very thick jungle and heavy rain. We came across a large gate surrounded by jungle. The gate was maybe 20 feet tall by 40 feet wide. But the very weird thing was, this gate didn't appear to go anywhere. It's like it just went straight into the jungle. As we stopped at the big metal gate, it slowly started opening. As we started driving in, I noticed we were going down, underground. We drove for about 10 minutes, and finally, I saw my friend. He was smiling and looked pretty happy to see me. He told me he was sorry for all the craziness I had to go through, but that this was standard protocol for being able to work at this place. He walked me over to the living quarters of the whatever we were at and told me to get some rest because we had a big day tomorrow. The next day we were in a small, white, clean, sterile room. There was 5 of us total. Me, my friend, some woman from India, and 2 other scientists who looked like they were from Harvard, newly grads. What my friend said next was a shock to me. He suddenly started to bring up some slides on the projector. He showed us some kind of crash site with a long 10-foot object buried in the soil. He told us this object they believed to be extraterrestrial in origin, possibly an alien satellite that was probing around our planet and then crashed. Our job was to go in and extract the object. Great precautions and care had to be taken to preserve this object at any cost. I asked him where the dig site was, and he said here. This entire base had been built around the crash site to hide any activity and preserve the object. They gave us a long list of strict rules and protocols. We couldn't use our cell phones, we couldn't talk to each other outside of work, and they said we would be given a polygraph test each month for a year after this job. As one of the protocols, we all had to wear these big white hazard suits. I guess it was to protect us and the object from any cross-contamination. After we were all done, they took us down a hallway into another gate that was labeled Site 02. The doors opened, and we were led into a large warehouse-like space with the crash site in the middle. Huge towering lights surrounded the area, and then it was time to work. The object was very smooth and black like obsidian glass. It was unlike anything I had ever seen before. It even had a distinct smell. As we worked, there was a group of soldiers and agents in black suits standing above the site watching our every move. We worked almost 8 hours until the object was 99% extracted from the dirt. We took a small break as some of the other men went down and examined it. But as we looked closer, we noticed something. This wasn't some kind of satellite. There was something, some being inside. Right away, one of the guys in the black suits got his radio and started calling in more people. About 3 to 5 other guys in black suits rushed in. They were told not to get too close, but they were all very, very excited about what we had discovered. They said, "Tell him to open it." In my mind, I was thinking, are you crazy? We can't open this. I went to my friend and told him, we can't open this thing. We don't know what it is, where it came from, if it's a weapon. But the big suits didn't care. They wanted this thing opened, and they wanted it opened now. We got some tools and slowly started trying to open this thing like if it was a sarcophagus, and it started to come loose. But right as it became loose, a large humming filled the air. The ground shook like an earthquake, and suddenly a bright light appeared like a nuclear bomb. I woke up in my own bed, like nothing happened. At first I thought this must have been some kind of weird dream or nightmare, whatever you want to call it. But it was just too real. It had to have happened. I got my phone and called my friend. Right away the phone said, "This number is no longer in service." I started to feel a little dizzy, and then I rushed to the toilet and threw up. After I threw up, there was this constant ringing in my head, but not like a typical tinnitus type of ring. Something weird. For about a week, I kind of brushed it off and just tried to move on with my life. I told myself it was all just a crazy, wild dream. But then 2 days later, I was coming home from the store and I saw something above my house. It was the same black craft, hovering about 20 feet above my house. I tried to take video with my phone, but it just glitched and stopped recording. But then the ringing in my head got louder and more painful. Right as the ringing started, I saw these weird visions. My city was on fire. Everything was dead and lifeless. The next day I went to the doctor. I told him I had this ring in my head and that I was getting these weird hallucinations. He said it was possible I had some kind of mental disorder or a possible tumor. So he sent me to get a scan of my head. About a day later, I went back to get the results of my scan, and the doctor looked confused. He said, "We found something in your brain, but we don't know what it is." He put the x-ray onto the light board, and in my brain was some kind of spiral-looking object right in the center. I didn't know what to say or do. He tried telling me to come back for more tests and this and that, but I just left. I knew what I had to do now. No one would ever believe my story. No one would ever understand what I was going through. It's been a month now, and everything has gotten worse. Now, along with the ringing and the visions, they talk to me. They tell me terrible things will soon happen to Earth. They are our gods, and they want us dead.